Hello, and welcome back to the Marketing Brief. I am your host, Brian Aquan. This is the podcast where we briefly touch on topics across the marketing landscape, and we're always joined by an industry expert. And today we have Rich Goldfarb with us. Hello, Rich.
Brian, a pleasure. It was nice to get to know you prior to this session.
Yeah, either a get to know you or a catching up, or somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah, maybe a little of both.
The New York days are a little hazy for me.
Yes.
But we're excited to have you today. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on now?
Sure. Well, following decades in the media business on the corporate end, I've been doing advisory and consulting work, some of it board related, some of it project related. And because there's not enough to do on the side, I'm also a real estate agent. I'm a realtor working with Compass, primarily in the Westchester area. And I'm the proud father of triplet boys who are 24, and it never ends.
I imagine. That's amazing. Well, maybe we'll start here. So I've been doing a lot of writing and having a lot of conversations around what we've identified as three macro trends for 2026. They are authenticity, community slash people, actual people, and value. Certainly something that a lot of people are thinking about in this economy, and I'm sure you come across in your real estate profession. You have a large background in broadcast media. I'd love to hear from you. Media has changed a ton over both of our careers. Do you see things popping back up from the broadcast space now in social and how people are kind of communicating? Like what can you draw on from your past experience of the media landscape you're seeing now?
Well, the media landscape is changing by the hour, and it started way before I left the mainstream of the industry. So it's interesting. When I got involved with cable, it was like this relatively new fledgling thing, the upstart to the broadcast networks. And then cable along the way became somewhat passe to the point where, as you know now, all the legacy media companies are, for the most part, either have or are going to spin them out because their fortunes have changed in terms of distribution and viewership, and therefore ad revenue as well. So streaming is the king. And that said, the legacy media companies still derive profit, diminished as it might be, margin not as high as it once was. So, they've tried to figure out, well, how do we sort of straddle both worlds? And that worked for a while, but of late, it's been much more challenging, and hence the attention on streaming.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, there was a point there where cable looked a lot like magazine, where you just had special interest verticals and, as many channels as they could spin out, they were going to get paid carriage rates on. So they just kept pumping out these channels to the point where, maybe to the detriment of the consumer who was like, do I need a channel for gardening as well as pets, as well as home decor? Like, do I need all those, and do I want to pay for all those? So that
Yeah.
certainly didn't last.
No, it did not. But, the beauty of cable in the beginning and for a very long time was two revenue streams, unlike broadcast network. So you had, the affiliate subscriber fees, and you had ad revenue at the same time. So it's kind of, an unbeatable combination.
Yeah.
And now, you have subscription fees from streaming, and almost every streamer, so to speak, has included advertising. And just an offhanded story, not that I really knew him because I didn't, but in the very early days of Netflix, when Reed Hastings launched the company, I saw tremendous potential for it as an ad platform on a limited basis. Think of the PBS-esque model,
Yeah.
if you will.
Brought to you by.
Yeah. And also possibly, being very content centric and matching it with the programming that was on the screen. So doing it in a very, intelligent, effective way. And being shy as I am, I sent him a note very early on, and I think I must have said something like, I know you're going to view this as heresy, however, and he did view it as heresy. And It was, it, wa- it, and who can argue with his success? But years later, obviously, they decided, yeah, we're going to do an advertising tier, and
Yeah.
pretty much everybody is in that game as well.
Yeah. I think those of us who have been in advertising long enough know that it always comes back to advertising, right? You build your audience, you tell them one thing or another, right? That
Right.
advertising's never coming, but at some point they all say, well, there's this whole revenue stream we could bring in from just putting advertising in front of the
Yeah.
content.
And you can do it in a thoughtful way, or you could
Mhm.
over commercialize it. It depends upon how you want to play that. But it also becomes something to play with from a price point of
Yeah.
view. Tiering, say, okay, you hate ads, well, pay me more money, and you won't see
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford it or don't want to pay the piper, then watch the ads and pay less on a subscriber fee. So
Yeah.
there are always creative or obvious ways to do that.
Yeah. I know from my years working at ad agencies that TV was always the thing that brands aspired to. They were like, we need to get that budget up so that we can be on TV. Do you think that still exists now with streaming? You think that's still an aspirational place for marketers and brands to be?
I think it is. I think it is much more selective, however, and live television, particularly live sports, remains at the top, and within that world, obviously the NFL remains at the top. The cost of a 30 or a 60 in the Super Bowl. I mean, in the old days, you and I could have sat down and it would have been like a gigantic schedule across, months and months and months instead of, one
Yeah,
telecast. But, there's a great utility to television. There's, an emotional connection to television, when done correctly, it could be fantastic.
absolutely.
I don't think anything quite has the same impact. There's different impact.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I mean, there's so many places for advertisers to go now, but being on that main screen in the living room is still an experience in a lot of households. Certainly, look at your audience, see if it's if it's right for the audience you're trying to reach. But I do think it's still an aspirational place for brands and marketers to want to be. And certainly, we saw with the Super Bowl, people are still ponying up for those
Yeah,
Super Bowl ads to try to reach a mass audience.
right. And in my career way back when, not that I was the only one, but I was kind of early on working with cross-platform. And the beauty of all of these options is you can put a campaign together across every screen and across every medium.
Yeah.
It can work really well. The key there is to develop, you would know this as a marketer, to develop the marketing that makes sense for that particular platform, as
Mhm.
opposed to the one size fits all of the creative and the messaging. So that could
Yeah.
be used to a great extent. We did that. I mean, I did that back in the '80s at Turner with Nestle. It was like this very big across all the Turner assets,
Yeah.
this very big deal. And then when I helped launch the National Geographic Networks, which was a joint venture with Fox, perhaps strange bedfellows, but it worked pretty well. And we had a property called Great Migrations, which is one of my pet projects. We actually, it may not be the image, certainly back then, you would have of a sales team, but I led a team on all sides. So we had a meeting once that involved the client or clients,
Hmm.
the creative people, the marketing people, the planning people, the buying people, the PR people, production people. Every discipline was in this one room, and it turned into, for one particular client I'll mention, UPS was about to launch a new logistics campaign. Logistics was never really talked about in that way. We were able to marry some of their commercial content, which actually involved migrations and
Yeah.
logistics, and wove it beautifully and elegantly across everything we were doing. And it was amazing how the ad agencies and the clients were just raving about it.
Yeah.
And, at the time, it was something that really didn't happen that often.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if it happens that often now.
Yeah, I would say it probably doesn't happen now. Just even getting those same people in a room or
In
even
one
on a
room.
Slack channel
Yeah,
together.
exactly.
That's awesome. Well, I always like to ask my guests what they're excited about. Is there something that you're excited about either in the industry, your new career, your family? What are you excited about right now, Rich?
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly excited that two of my boys, having graduated college after some angst and difficulty because of the post college job market, are
Hmm.
actually working.
That's
Um,
great.
one is in finance, one is working for Horizon Media,
Oh, all right.
and
Great
and he
agency.
did this on his own. As an aside, I've already done one name drop with Reed Hastings. I'll do another one. So I did a lot of business with Horizon Media through the
Hmm.
years, but the founder grew up in the
Bill.
same first company that I worked for.
Oh,
He
really?
and I both started our careers in a company that was strictly a media buying company
Hmm.
that was purchased at Leibov Associates.
Okay.
And Bill founded Horizon and has turned it into, depending upon which stat you want to look at, possibly as much as an $8 billion company.
Yeah. Very
So
impressive.
Bill's an amazing guy.
Yeah, I actually worked for Bill.
Did you work
I
for
worked
Bill?
at Horizon. Yeah, I worked with Bill when he was still on the softball team when we had it at Horizon in New York, and it was still an independent agency. But yeah, very impressive guy. Him and Donnie have done a great job with Horizon.
Yeah, that's incredible. What
Yeah,
did you do? What did you do?
I was on the digital media team. I was working on A&E, History Channel, Ace Hardware. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was the early days of digital, so it was really just trying to win a budget over and put some banners online and prove some ROI.
that's fantastic. I love that. So yes, it is 6 degrees.
Yep,
Uh,
absolutely.
all you have to do is talk for more than 2 minutes, and you recognize that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for my two guys. My third guy is the one that is creating a little concern because he graduated a year later than the other two
Mhm.
because Northeastern has an amazing program, a co-op program, where you basically work full-time jobs for 6 months at a time. So he graduated later, and progressively the job market has gotten more challenging.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
he is still out there. So the day he lands something, I'll be very excited.
Yeah. You're at 66% right now, and you're looking to get to 100%.
Yeah, that is the math. 2/3.
Always looking
That's
at the
right.
data. Well,
Yeah,
thanks
yeah.
so much, Rich. This has been really great to catch up with you, to talk about the industry. And we've been really excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much, Brian.
Awesome. Well, this has been the Marketing Brief with Brian Aquan. Stay curious.